Great. So, guys, we are back here for another PDOCS live stream series episode. And as many of you guys know, I was running these very consistently twice a month, every other Thursday. And during November and December up until now, what's today, the 11th, I want to say? Um, December up until now and all of November, I haven't been running very many or any of these. I think all I did was the knowledge gap analysis workshop back in late October or November and haven't really run one since. So, as a lot of you guys know, when we do these, if I don't have an expert special guest on and I'm just teaching a lesson, I kind of stream these right into the private PDOCS group. Now, when I have a guest on, like we have Anita here today, I always go live from my private Zoom room, and I only had a couple of attendees here now, but we'll keep the waiting room open. Maybe more people hop in, and I know a lot of you guys will be watching this on the replay. People that either couldn't catch it live that saw my post on Facebook and DM me for the replay, or I always upload these to YouTube, so you might be watching these on the YouTube channel, etc. But and just to be, cognizant of all of our time, I just really want to dive into it and get started and start off with, welcoming and introducing our guest today. So, Anita, I could talk a little and give a little introduction, and I know the people that saw this or on this that are in the PDOCS group may have saw your intro post. But why don't you tell us a little about yourself, your expertise, your background, and anything that you think is relevant? And that'd be a great start.
Yeah, hi guys. Hi everyone. My name is Anita. I come from Zagreb, Croatia. That's Central Europe. And I'm an executive and a career coach. And I work with founders who are kind of like tired of carrying the whole burden on their shoulders and who are burned out and demotivated and just like wondering, is this all there is? And they're like, maybe kind of fallen out of love with their business, which used to be really, really exciting for them at the beginning, but over the years, maybe they just kind of lost that mojo and they're wondering like, what's next? So, yeah, my background is in HR. I spent like a decade working in tech companies. Among other things, I've done recruitment and I've supported leaders through their struggles. And I just, at some point, I completely lost all sense of meaning and purpose in that career and decided to follow my passion, do what I love doing the most, which is helping people see their blind spots and become a better version of themselves. Yeah. So that's kind of in short about what I do.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And as we talked about, and as you mentioned there, and I'll re-highlight and emphasize, but anybody that saw the promotional post about today's live stream, or as Anita just mentioned, we're kind of going to go over how to fall back in love with your business. I think that's been a common trend now. Anita and I met recently within the last couple of months through a mutual friend of ours that runs a podcasting community. So he meets with all kinds of, experts and has people in his community. And Anita and I on one of those sessions where there was, I don't know, a dozen or 15 of us, different business owners and influencers and leaders. A lot of us, all do intros on that particular episode, and we're messaging one another. And I don't remember exactly what it was that stood out about Anita in that first session, but I remember messaging her immediately after and going to friend request her on Facebook or vice versa. And we started, chatting. I think it was later that day, as a matter of fact. And then we had a one-on-one call, and the time just kind of flew by. It was just very organic and natural. And I don't even know if we really discussed anything like in terms of an objective, the way I would normally show up to like some type of networking call. We just kind of got to know each other. And once she started to dive into like what she does and who she helps, I was like, that's way different from almost anybody, probably anybody I've had on in my community. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to a lot of that stuff because I feel like personally, I've been pretty blessed to always have a pretty high passion since I became an entrepreneur and left my, 9 to 5 I did for 20 years. But there have been ruts and times where I was like, is this really what I want to be doing? Should I go back to my day job, et cetera, et cetera? Um, and with all that stuff being said, I know specifically a lot of the clients I've worked with have been in that space probably more than the time that they've been in love with their business. I think they've been out of love with it more than they've been in love with it. So I know you have kind of a curriculum and an outline to go over, but I'd love to start with asking you the question because I kind of have my own synopsis of this, I guess is the best way to put it. But what do you think are some of the big reasons that people get started in their business, their entrepreneurial journey? They're all, hyped up and excited about it, and then the love falls away. But what do you think are some of the reasons that happens?
Okay, so I think that probably there are about two reasons why people start a business. One is they want to make a difference. They are like driven by a certain cause or like passion for something. And the other one is they kind of accidentally build a business. Like, oh, I've got this skill. Like this usually happens to tech founders. Like software developer, I can code. Look, there's a market, there's a problem that I could solve. Let's do it. Let's charge the client. And then before they know it, it's been like 5 or 10 years. They've built a whole company. It wasn't started with a clear intention of like, what kind of a difference do I want to make in the world? What kind of a life do I want to live? It was just like, yeah, why not do it? Why not earn some money and do it? And I don't think that's necessarily wrong. It's just that after a while, as you grow older, as you mature, I mean, most people reach this point where they want to contribute something more than just, building a life for themselves. They want to pursue a family. They want to build a great life. They want to, live a meaningful life, have, fulfilling experiences. And also for work, they want to do something that makes a difference, that they actually care about, that makes them proud. A lot of the businesses that I see around, they don't really have a, exciting purpose. It's just like, we're passionate about automating. No, you're not passionate about automating. Nobody's passionate about automating anything. This is just like a business statement. But what are you really passionate about? What is that boy or girl inside of you really, really excited about? What did you want to do? Who did you want to be when you were growing up? Like, those kinds of questions we forget to ask them, and we neglect them. And then you find yourself in this like uninspiring business that is, every business is hard, there's no easy business, but then if you don't have the deeper why, every pain becomes enormous suffering, and pain is not the same as suffering, but pain turns to suffering um, when you don't really have a reason to handle the pain. If money is the only reason, money is a great reason maybe at the beginning because you're trying to prove yourself. But after a while, if that's the only reason, I find that a lot of people just don't find it compelling enough.
So basically what you're kind of saying is you went back to, and I asked the question why more people fall out of love, and and you went back to like the two main reasons or the two main avenues that people start a business, and I would agree with that. And I'm kind of glad that you brought up the almost accidental business that I started,
Yeah.
because it happens more often than people maybe acknowledge or are aware of. But I think what you're saying is if you didn't actually start your business with a clear vision and purpose and mission behind it, is the number one reason why people are falling out of love with it. Is that kind of what you meant by that?
I think so too. Yeah, because at some point it becomes okay. So if people knew how hard building a business actually is, nobody would probably start a business. So it's good that we don't know. It's good that people are maybe a little bit optimistic and maybe a little bit naive about that. And then when it becomes unbearably hard, you don't really have a strong enough of a reason to keep going, right? What's your reason to keep doing the hard things every day? And if you don't
Yeah.
have a strong reason, your motivation is going to, you can still have a successful business. Plenty of people do, but it's from a place of self-torture, basically. It's discipline, it's pure willpower.
Yeah,
And
like a
that
lot
can
of
only
people
get
feel
you
like,
so far. Yeah.
and a lot of people I think feel like when they start their own business, a lot of times they feel like now become another employee in their business, except now they can't punch out when they used to at 9 to 5, right? And things like
Yeah.
that. I think what you said, I actually don't think that the common person, whether they've ever tried or aspired to, or don't even aspire to, but I don't believe that the average person thinks starting a business is easy. Now, I agree with you that I don't think everyone realizes quite how hard it is either, but I don't think people
Yeah,
go
yeah.
into it thinking it's easy. And personally, for me, anything in life, business I think is the prime example, but same thing to do with your health or getting in shape, losing weight. It all comes down to, if anything worth doing is usually hard. You know what I mean? If it's
Yeah.
not hard, it's probably not worthwhile. And I think the same with business. I actually really revel in the difficult aspect of it, because I know not everybody's going to have the same perseverance and discipline as me. And if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. I don't want to do something that necessarily everybody can do. I want to do something that
Mhm.
is excellent and that not the average person can do. And again, I think that's part of being a business owner, is we are a minority as opposed to the employee community.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think anybody thinks it's easy, but I think we underestimate how the hard will feel, because I think you have two kinds of hard. Like, it's hard to know what to do and to actually execute. But what's even harder is the emotional volatility that you have to deal with. Like when things are not going your way, how do you experience that? Like when you get rejected from a client, Do you make it mean, oh shit, I'm not good enough, I'm never gonna make it? Do you make it mean something bigger and more negative than it actually is? What about, worrying about money, the doubts, the anxiety? That is another kind of hard. You can just sit in your chair and worry all day, and you're gonna have like a really terrible day without nothing happened that day, but you had a horrible day just because you created it in your mind. And so, yeah, one part of business is hard, which is the commercial side of things, like how to actually build it, sell it, market it, find clients. All of that is really difficult. But then another level of difficulty is the way that we experience all of that and the meanings that we attach to the common entrepreneurial troubles and pains. And that's where I bring the difference between pain and suffering. Like business is pain, but oftentimes we exacerbate the suffering that
We
comes
almost
with pain.
self-impose it to an extent.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, as I was just looking back at the post I wrote last week when I was first talking about this because I was thinking about it, and I listed like the top three reasons that I've seen working with clients where they kind of fall out of love
Mhm.
with their business to an extent. And I just mentioned one of them. Their business just turns into another job, right? And they don't feel any more
Mhm.
gratification or satisfaction or fulfillment. They just feel like they are now just employed for their own company. So number two, I put is when what I found is a lot of people, and maybe this is where I would agree with you, where they're a little naive. A lot of them expect almost, or yeah, I think yeah, I think expect is the right word. Some type of instant gratification and success, whether that be. I mean, there has to be a little bit of a monetary aspect to it in business because you have bills and you have overhead and you have a mortgage probably or a
Mhm.
car payment or kids or whatever. So obviously there's a minimum need that everybody needs each month monetarily to survive, right? And then you, obviously in business, your goal is to go above and beyond that need and have profit and then be able to create freedom and a good life for yourself. So I think it turns into another job, the instant gratification or lack thereof, really. And I think two and three kind of tie right in, but it's the lack of instant success and the lack of reaching their monetary goals that kind of force them to either question their business or you don't know how many people, you might know how many, but since I started in 2019 or 2020 going away from my corporate job, it was just over 6 years now, November 15th of 2019, where I left my career. I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, and I remember like some of the first coaching programs and courses I was in, and I'm still in contact with a lot of those people. But you don't know how many within the first 6 months of the first kind of crew of newcomers that I built in my network going into business that went back to a 9 to 5 or a day job within that first 6 months. It was had to be 75% of them that within six
Mhm.
months we were all this crew that was, hey, we're all coming up together. We're all going to have these great businesses. 6 months later, 75% are back working a day job. So I just found that
Yeah.
fascinating. Anything you can kind of add on to that before we go into your topics?
Yeah. Um, I think, yeah, the instant gratification, because we tend to carry over the same habits and patterns from the corporate into the business. So when you start a business, you still don't have the mindset of a business person, of an entrepreneur. You still have the corporate mindset. You're used to your regular paychecks. And this takes time. This isn't an overnight transition. Just because you moved to Italy doesn't make you Italian. Just because you started a business doesn't make you an entrepreneur. Your mindset is still kind of stuck in the old ways. And this is, to build on to your point, also part of the reason why so many entrepreneurs fall out of love with their businesses, because they recreated the same dynamic that they experienced in the corporate. They carry they carry it over into their business just because it's the way that they are used to operating, right? So yeah.
Good point. Good point. So why don't we let you screen share and kind of dive into some of the topics that you wanted to cover? Again,
Um,
what most relevant to this lesson of kind of falling back in love with your business, and then we'll talk about the free guide that you're giving away to anybody that attended here today, and I'll drop that down in the comments. And guys, it'll also be posted in the link in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube or any of the replay.
yeah, I'm not going to be doing the screen sharing, but I have like a really cool concept that I want to tell everybody about. It's
Great.
so simple, I think you're not going to even need the visuals. So I wanted to just talk about one really, really interesting phenomenon that explains why it's so difficult to achieve goals and what we're all doing wrong. Um, when we are trying to achieve any goal really in life, and the biggest blind spot that we all have. So let's say a business person, like an entrepreneur, is trying to increase revenue. They're trying to get more sales, grow their company, scale. Like let's use that because it's very simple. Everybody can relate to that. Everybody wants more money, right? And
Pretty
so,
much.
yeah, pretty much. So imagine a pyramid, and at the bottom of the pyramid, you have the environment, like your company, the situation in which you are, your market, things that are out of your control, just like where you are, the context of your business. Then you have the what and you have the how. Like the what is, what do I need to do to scale to increase revenue? Those are the things I need to do. The how is, how do I do them? That's basically your skills and competencies. And of course, if you don't have that ready, if you don't know what you have to do and how to do it, you're going to struggle. Like, there's no amount of positive thinking that can bridge that gap between where you are, like across that, knowledge and skills gap. There's no way around it. Like, if you don't know how to do it, you're not going to make it. So what we do is we hire mentors, we get educated, we get trained, we look for strategies, the obvious stuff. Now, the problem is when you have all of that, why are you still not able to achieve your goal? Right? You work really hard. You went to some courses. You have a mentor. You're like, and things are just not working out for you. Um, there are upper levels of that pyramid that you need to consider that may be playing a role, and that is the level of beliefs, and values, and your identity and purpose. And all of them need to be aligned. So it's a mistake to think that you are one, like that you are a person who has this one clear goal and you're completely aligned with it. More often than not, we have other parts of ourselves, internal parts that are not aligned with that goal. They want different things. You can think of them as like different characters inside of you. You don't have to be like a distressed person or a crazy person. Everybody has that. You have like your inner child. There are different models that describe that.
Your
But
heart makes one decision, but your brain might make another, and they
yeah,
conflict with one another at times.
we've
That's
all
just one
used those.
example.
Yeah, exactly. We've all used those analogies like one part of me wants this, another part of me wants that. So we don't always have aligned goals, and the problem is when those goals are not aligned because of something at the upper level of those pyramids. So maybe I don't know, you grew up in a very poor family and your parents had a very negative attitude towards wealthy people, and so a part of you is worried that if you make a lot of money, then your dad is going to be intimidated by you and you might alienate yourself from him. Like there,
Yeah, you
that's
might
a
almost cause some resentment within your parents and such.
Yeah, exactly. You might have a belief that, rich people are all evil. So you don't want to be rich because who wants to be an evil person, right? Um, or you might have like a system of values that is not aligned with that. Like values is what's important to you. So maybe right now you're in a stage of life where it's really important for you to spend time with your family and just be a good dad, be a good parent, be a good mom, whatever. And scaling your company, it's going to take more time from you. And so you're not completely aligned with that because it goes against your values, right? You value your free time, you value freedom, and you don't want to lose your freedom. You don't want to sacrifice family time, right? At the level of identity, you could also just have an identity of a person who is not wealthy because you've been struggling your whole life, even as an entrepreneur. Maybe it's that you always struggled, like you paid everybody else, you had to pay your employees. Maybe you made, bare minimum for yourself. Um, it could be that here's an example from a different area of life that I think a lot of people recognize. Sometimes people struggle to lose weight because they have an identity of a person who's overweight. They think of themselves in ugly terms, like I'm fat, and they really identify with that, right? So that's the level of identity. And then you have the level of purpose. And that's like, is this even meaningful to me? Like, do I really, does this really fulfill my purpose? And so the problem is that I notice that a lot of people, not just when they struggle with financial goals, whatever goals, like, I don't know, you're overworked and you're tired and you lack time. And so what do? You look for productivity hacks, right? You struggle to make money, you hire mentors, you try out new strategies, new hacks, a great new method to, great client acquisition system, this revolutionary new thing. So we tend to fall for these like quick hacks because we're desperately looking for solutions, and we think, oh, there must be something wrong in what I'm doing. Like maybe I'm not doing it right.
All
And
kind of chasing the shiny object syndrome type of thing.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, and the way that this plays out is that we either procrastinate because you're not aligned with the goal, a part of you or different parts of you don't actually want it. They are maybe even afraid of it. You might be afraid of like achieving your own goal without even knowing. This is, by the way, all really subconscious. This doesn't
That's
happen on a
awesome.
conscious level, right? But you might be afraid of achieving your goal. You might be thinking, but what if I lose everything? You know, you might be thinking like this, and this is actually a real example. If you have a belief that you can't have everything in life, okay, something must go wrong at some point. And let's say right now everything's good with your family, your family's healthy, you're healthy, everybody's okay, everybody's doing great. Um, and business is doing okay, and you want to scale, you know what? Probably not a good idea because life is going to punish you. And if you scale your business, if you achieve that goal, then you're going to have really like everything. And so what if something bad happens to your family? Like, what if something happens to your wife or to your husband, right? So these are all these subconscious forces that are driving us, and they make us either procrastinate and not, or avoid, or not really fully do the behaviors we need to do, the actions we need to do to achieve the goal. Or they could make us sabotage ourselves. So, like, you do the things you need to do, but it's basically like you're taking one step forward and then one step back. So, you're like doing a lot of movement back and forth, but you're basically standing in one place. Like, you're kind of tricking yourself into thinking you're being very busy. Like, you can just do busy work all day and think, oh, I'm trying so hard, I'm working so hard. Whereas, in fact, you're doing everything to conceal that fact from yourself that you don't actually want the goal. So a part of you that really wants the goal is doing a lot, they're hustling, and the other part that doesn't want it is doing all the wrong things. It's making you do all the wrong things. They don't really move the needle. So I just find that fascinating how we all have these blind spots. Like if you recognize yourself in some of these things, like don't feel embarrassed. Like I have my own blind spots as well, because you can't see the back of your head. You need somebody to put the mirror there and show it to you. But we all do this to some extent. It's pretty common. And but what I just want to bring everyone's attention to is that if you're just not aware of this, if you keep solving all of your problems at the lowest level possible, which is the level of knowledge and skills, meaning you hire consultants, you hire mentors, you learn new skills, you work on your tactics, productivity hacks, time management hacks, whatever, um, and those are still not working, I think it's that's a pretty good sign that something within you is actually not completely aligned with the goal that you want to achieve. That doesn't mean you need to change your goal. That doesn't mean that this is a completely wrong goal for you. It could mean it could mean that. It could mean that you're just not being very honest with yourself and you need to re-examine the goal, but it could also mean that those parts of you that are resisting have some fears and doubts that are unaddressed, and you need to address those and bring them back into alignment. Yeah, that's my TED talk.
Oh no, that's really good. My follow up to that just immediately would be, and I don't know if this is a short answer or an extremely long one. I guess I'll find out. But my answer, my question back to you would be, what are some of the common solutions or ways that people can overcome those things? I think you laid out that some very good indicators that it might be some more subconscious or mentality or self-limiting belief issues on why you're not achieving what you want. And I agree with that. I'm curious, what are some of the solutions or the ways you help people overcome those things?
Yeah, so there's one really important question that you need to ask yourself, or I can ask you, and it's what is the benefit of you not achieving that goal? Because whenever we do anything that's self-destructive or like not so you want to achieve a goal, but you keep doing all the opposite things or you're not achieving it, right? What is the hidden benefit? Because there is some benefit you're getting from that. Um,
That's a great question, right? When you asked it, I was thinking to myself, and the answer is nothing. There is no reason, and that's why I've had pretty good success keep hitting my goals. Because
yeah.
I don't find a benefit in not reaching them. But I imagine if I was struggling or stuck, my mind would have an answer there, or something like that. So,
Yeah.
no, it's a great question, actually.
So the whole point is to figure out like what part of you is preventing you from achieving that. That part of you is not evil. That part is not your enemy. I know there are some schools of thoughts that talk about those parts in terms of like inner saboteurs, inner gremlins. You need to defeat them. That's not a good idea because every time you want to achieve change by becoming your own enemy and going against yourself and hating those parts of you that are making you overeat, drink, procrastinate, you name any habit you want to get rid of, or you're not building a good relationship with yourself. It's much better to become friends with that part, to get to know it better, to really ask yourself. And by the way, I do this with myself quite often, and anybody can do it. Just what you can do is you can kind of try to feel it. Where is it in your body? If you're a kind of a aware person, right? I'm not so much in my body, but I guess like for me, it's always somewhere in the stomach area, and then I like really focus on it, and I ask that part really as if it was like another person. What are you trying to protect me from? What are you afraid is going to happen if I do this? Why are you making me feel so bad? And it's incredible. I mean, it's deceptively simple. It sounds almost stupid, right? But it works incredibly. It works incredibly. Like and my clients, we get instant answer. And the answer is usually something surprising, like, oh wow, and it totally makes sense, right? Just today I had a client and she has a really strong inner critic who doesn't let her do anything. She's like, you have to be disciplined. And we talked to this part and it turns out that this part is just afraid that she's gonna break things, that she's gonna make everything like fall apart, that she's gonna get completely lost. So this part is afraid that she's just gonna lose it. She's not gonna stick to her routine and she's not gonna do the things she's supposed to do, and it keeps her disciplined and it keeps talking. That part keeps telling her, how could you be so stupid? How could you be so, it's basically criticizing her and insulting her. And
Almost doing
as
it in a way of
crazy,
like being a defense mechanism to an extent. Like you said, I
yeah.
don't think you should battle with the part of yourself that has doubts or fears. You got to get to know that part better and get in alignment with it. But yeah, it almost sounds like what you're saying, and a lot of people he's doing not intentionally, but almost as a way, like I said, in an internal defense mechanism against failure.
Yeah, yeah, it could be also a defense mechanism against success, like in the example I gave with someone who's
Yeah.
afraid of making it because they're afraid they're going to lose everything or that they're going to alienate people around them. So to find out what's the intention of that part, like it's usually protective. Like 99% of cases, it's protective. It wants to protect you from some perceived or real danger. And that part is usually exaggerating, like they have good intentions, but the the way that they apply, it's wrong. It's exaggerated, right? So
Oh, that makes sense.
detecting that is, yeah, that is like the first step. And kind of think when you do that from there, it kind of goes more easily. You begin to build a relationship with those parts. You begin to like, I call this self-leadership. This isn't my concept. Like a lot of the work I do, I take it from psychotherapeutic
Yeah.
theories and stuff like that. So it's called self-leadership, really, that you, as an adult Raymond, you take charge, but not by telling all of those parts to, go to hell, shut up, I'm the boss here. That's not the right way. That's not the way you would treat your employees. That's not the way that you can lead anyone, right? For a brief while you can, everybody is going to shut up and they're going to be afraid of you, but that's not a good long-term strategy. But it's like taking the lead and building trust with them and let them do your thing without interfering, without being so panicky about you failing or getting yourself into dangerous situations that they're trying to protect you from.
Makes total sense. Makes total sense.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good segue. So for the couple people on the live stream right now in the Zoom room, I'm going to drop in the chat the glitch guide that Anita has brought, which will help you individually kind of identify that mechanism for yourself that might be holding you back, making yourself miserable, stopping yourself from achieving your goals. So I just dropped that in the chat for anybody live. Again, if you're watching on YouTube or any of the replay, it's already linked in the description below this video. You guys can all go click on the link right there, go enter your information, and then she will email you over that guide and you guys can go through it because I really think it's going to be a benefit. I looked at it briefly, but Anita, do you want to describe the guide just a little further and give them a
Yeah.
synopsis of what they're perfect?
So the guide is actually you just gave me a good idea. There's a great online assessment tool which is free. I'm gonna share it with you, Raymond, and then maybe you can when you share the talk, you can maybe put the link there. It's totally free and
Awesome.
it
Yeah.
tells you, yeah, it's like a inner saboteur assessment. And again, I don't like the language of inner saboteurs because it's a little bit like you have these problematic parts of you. But nonetheless, it's so insightful. Like it gives you so much insight into your own self-sabotage mechanisms. So I'm going to share a link with that with you for that.
Yeah, please do.
Um, yeah. So the guide that I prepared, it's basically an exercise that, no exaggeration, it changed my life. Because usually when you have like an aha eye-opening moment in life that completely changes the trajectory of your life, those are the moments that are usually tragic, huge transformational events like losing someone close to you, like losing a parent, getting fired, and stuff like that. Those are usually the eye-opening moments for most people when they start examining their life and thinking, wait a minute, what am I doing with my life? I need to make some yeah, I need to make some changes. This isn't the life I want to live. And so there is an exercise that kind of gives you that jolt of electricity without you actually having to experience trauma and tragedy. And it's called end of life exercise. You basically think about your life from the end point. And you think about, like, first of all, ideally, how would you want your life to look like? So let's say you lived your perfect life, just like the way you want it. And then you look at it from that end point. And then you look at your life now, the way that you're living it, and you ask yourself, if I keep doing the same things I'm doing, is it gonna lead to that life? Again, sounds deceptively simple, but what it does, it kind of, I call it the time travel. It really like takes you from this moment, it transports you into the future, and it gives you that bit of elevation that you need to get because we're all like so deeply entrenched in our everyday reality. We lose the big picture. So this is not something people regularly do, right? When's the last time you thought about your life from like the end point when you're old and then dying at 95? You know, probably
I only
never.
remember doing that once. I did one exercise like this when I started my entrepreneurial journey. So outside of that, I don't think I've ever done it.
Oh, you have done it at the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey. What was it
I did
like
it.
for
I
you?
did it more from the perspective of I actually wrote myself a letter as if I was writing to myself at the end of my life what I would have wanted to accomplish, how I want to be remembered, what type of legacy and things
Mm.
that I want to leave for my kids, etc. So I actually like wrote out a letter that I still to this day have and read from time to time to get more motivated,
Oh,
more perspective. So I did that in late 2019, early 2020, and I still go back probably 2 to 3 times a year and just pull it out from where I have it tucked away and read it. I'm like, oh my God, like that's why. All right. And it just kind of gets me fired up again.
wow. Well, that's I've heard of that variation of that exercise as well. It's kind of like there's another one that's a bit more morbid. You write your own eulogy, but the point is the same, to get
Yes.
elevation, to get transported into that end of life point when everything looks different from that vantage point and you can kind of have an aerial overview of your life. And that connects you with what's really important. And so I imagine when you read that letter that you wrote to yourself, it reminds you of why you started your business, who you want to be as a person,
Yes.
not just what's the next goal for the next quarter, right?
And
So
that has nothing to do with that letter exactly. It doesn't
yeah,
break down my goals by quarters. It breaks down the bigger mission and
yeah.
intention and passion and really legacy. Like whether you're leaving just a legacy to your family or whether you leave a legacy that millions of people watch and view your stuff after you die. I don't really think it varies. Um, how you look at this type of an exercise per se.
Yeah, exactly. And it puts things into perspective, like the little things that we sweat over, they don't seem that important. Yeah, it reminds you of what's really important. So first there's that, to give you that insight into whether you're really aligned with the life you truly want to live, or maybe you've gone off track without even realizing that you have. And then there's a
We've all
guide
done that
in
too.
the, yeah, yeah. And then there's a guide that explains why that happens, and it explains that kind of misalignment and what that really looks like, just to like show people that there's nothing wrong with you if you're experiencing that. It's just it's a potentially a catastrophic the event. Like if you keep drifting away from that vision, you are heading for a life of disappointment and regret and unhappiness. And it's really important to realize that you are drifting and to try to get back to that main avenue before it's too late, because for a lot of people the consequences of that are much worse than they anticipate, because um it's like death by a thousand cuts. You don't die at once. Like it's not like, oh, now my life fell apart. It just slowly disintegrates. Like a frog is, I don't know if you have that saying in English, like when you cook a frog, you don't throw a frog into the hot water. You put the frog in the cold water and you slowly increase the heat. That's how we die. That's how you live an unfulfilled life. Just one decision after another, one, you know,
Yeah, just
um,
slowly deteriorating
yeah,
your life, really.
yeah, yeah.
Great. So there's a couple other things I want to cover. We got to wrap it up in the next, 10 minutes or so. But what I always like to do when I have a guest on, and I don't have the same expertise or background or experience as Anita, but I like to give you guys some of the points that she covered and things that I have done that kind of correlate with, or things that I have used to maybe overcome some of these things. So I was taking notes about different things as Anita was talking here, and we were going back and forth. And one thing you mentioned early on was like a lot of people, and they're always focused on stuff outside of their control, and they really put a lot too much emphasis or attention toward those things. So that's one thing I've always been very good at, kind of compartmentalizing which are the things within my control and which aren't. And I really have a good ability to block out what's not that relevant or
Mhm.
important to me, just focus on what's in my control. And that's really given me a lot more confidence and conviction in life, because it's like I just don't see anything positive and or productive that comes out of focusing on things outside of my control. I just can't find it. And that's one thing I'm always looking for. And one question I always ask I don't know, 2 or 2.5 years ago, was like, I always ask myself, if I'm unsure or about to go do something, is this positive and or productive? And if the answer is no to both of those things, I'm not going to do it. There's just no, you know what I mean? So that's a very simple question. Another
Mhm.
thing that, you mentioned, and I've seen over and over again, so I know you're spot on with this, with the procrastination being a huge one, self-sabotage, doubt, fear, all that stuff. One thing that I've taught for years, I probably do one lesson on this maybe every year for the last 4 or 5 years. It's something I labeled the CIA method that I kind of teach to people, especially starting out. Everything kind of falls within consistency, implementation, and accountability. So, are you consistently doing the daily things that we need to do? What's that? DMs, emails, outreach, running ads, whatever. Are we doing them consistently? Because a lot of people, if they look in the mirror and ask themselves, they have to say no. A lot of people aren't. And then number two, can you tell yourself the truth and hold yourself accountable? I'm sorry, that's number three, accountability. Number two, the implementation is within, am I doing this consistency? Now that's more about tracking the implementation upon, let's say, multiple platforms. And let's keep this toward business and say client acquisition. Did I do my LinkedIn outreach request, my DMs, and did I do my 50 emails today? So, like, that's the implementation. And then lastly is the accountability. Look yourself in the mirror at the end of every day and say, did I do all these things? If the answer is no, the way I operate, that means my day's not done yet. It simply isn't, right? I go back onto my phone or get back at my computer until those things are done. And a lot of people can stop at 4 or 5 p.m. or whatever time they cut off and be like, oh, I got done most of what I wanted today. That's good enough. Now, for myself, and I think high level, operators, they look at it and say, I didn't hit my minimum daily requirements. I'm not done yet. And it's really that simple. You can certainly overcomplicate it, but you don't need to. And then There's a few more, but one more I really want to cover that I think is most important, and that has probably had the biggest impact out of anything I've talked about today for me, is really understanding your core values. I have what I call my cornerstone core four values, and those are laid out before I go into business or any new offer. And when I launched any business that I currently have, my four cornerstone values are embedded in my business. So they're always going to be aligned with my purpose, my mission, and my vision. If you don't ever set those, and again, it doesn't have to be four. I found that works really well. And I look at it as a foundation of the building. You need four cornerstones, one on each corner to hold up the foundation. Same thing with my business. So mine have to do with being unfiltered, for pros or cons. That's my personality, and that's how I come. You get what you get from me. Some people love it, some people hate it, but I'm always going to be honest and transparent and unfiltered. Again, it's not everybody's taste, but it's me, and as long as I keep that in my business, it keeps me really invigorated. Right. Number two is I've always said, keep the promises you make to yourself. That goes back to, in my CIA method, accountability, but
Mm.
it's a very simple
Yeah.
philosophy that a lot of people don't do. Hey, I'm not going to pick up a beer for 2 weeks or whatever boundaries you set, right? Business, personal, recreational stuff. But like, can you keep the promises you make to yourself? Because when you can, your life gets infinitely better. Another one of mine is, protect your environment. And I kind of mean that twofold. Number one, the people you let into your life and that you actually give your time to, would they reciprocate that back to you? Not to say there's anything wrong with giving with no expectation of return. I do it all the time. But the people in my inner circle, if I would do a favor for them, I know they would do it back for me someday. And I think a lot of people let a lot of takers into their lives that would never give back. And I think that eventually leads to a drain on your overall productivity in life. So again, yours shouldn't be and probably aren't the same three or four that I just mentioned, but you should kind of identify what those core values are in your life. And if your business is built and embedded upon those things, I think it's going to give you a lot better chance of staying in love with it. And maybe I just answered my own question that I said at the top and I didn't even realize it till right now, but maybe that's why I haven't really had those pockets where I've fallen out of love with my business, because I've always had those values embedded and they were there before the business became successful.
Yeah,
So
it
anyway,
sounds like it was,
hopefully that's
yeah.
valuable for anyone listening. Sorry, back to you, Anita. Go ahead.
For sure. I mean, I love everything you just said. I probably don't have time to comment on everything, but yeah, one, keeping promises to yourself, that is what builds self-esteem and self-confidence more than any self-confidence course can, just because you start to respect yourself more, right?
Yeah.
And I would say don't do it out of force, don't do it out of like, oh, I must do it, otherwise I'm a loser. Do it out of love. Do it like I respect myself enough to keep my own word. I'm gonna do this for myself, right? And the values thing, yeah. If you have like 15 values, that's too much. It's good to keep it under five, just for memory purposes. Like otherwise, it's just kind of too much. And it's
Really
what I
true.
always advise. Yeah, what I always advise is to make those values actionable, because if your value is like honesty, like what does that mean? But if you say, I tell the truth even when it's uncomfortable and hard, that is more specific. And if you do it in a way that describes your behavior, that's way more powerful, because then your values are like a compass that helps you decide what decision to make when there aren't clear parameters.
Yeah. So it can
Um,
direct you and guide you.
yeah, yeah. So I noticed that your values weren't that like one word, because everybody would agree honesty is good, but that's honesty is a virtue then. It's not a value, but it's a when you say I'm unfiltered, you know exactly what you mean and what that looks like. Right. So I think that those are my two kind of pieces of advice, to not be so vague, to get more like down to earth with that. Yeah. Be specific with your values and know what you stand for and what you stand against. And if you embed that in your business, then yeah, your business is probably going to be built on much healthier foundations than if it's solely built on just your passion. Passion is great, passion is cool, but
Yeah, or
passion
if it's
fades
solely
away.
built on wanting to make money too. That's another one that we, as you
That's
talked about,
another
travels
one.
quickly.
Yeah, that's another one. That's like there's nothing really substantial there. So if you have your values, if you're clear on what you stand for, also you got to be willing to pay the price, right? You said I'm unfiltered. Probably didn't go well every time you were unfiltered, right? But if
Oh, it
you
doesn't
are
always
going to
go
be, yeah, but that's how you know it's your value, because you're willing to pay the price. So probably willing to pay the price of not being liked by every single person you talk to,
100%.
right? So
100%.
if you're not willing to pay the price, or if you've never paid a price, how do you know that it's value, right?
It's a
it's
good point.
not, yeah, it can't be a value only if it's convenient, right?
Yeah,
Precisely
or
when it
only
becomes
if it's like
inconvenient.
got mass approval, right? I only say this if
Yeah,
I know the masses are behind me. Like I'll say things that
yeah,
I know are minority approval, but if I
yeah,
believe it, I'm still going to say it regardless. I don't need people's approval to have
yeah.
a conviction in my belief.
Yeah. So a good question to ask is what price am I willing to pay for this value? If I say I value telling the truth even when it's inconvenient, am I willing to lose a client for that? Am I willing to lose a friend? Am I willing to offend? Am I willing to, you know, not be liked?
Well, those are great because everything you just said, I've lost, I don't know, really close friends, but a couple family members, I've certainly offended or pushed away a little for speaking truth. I've certainly lost clients over my beliefs at times, but no dollar amount or no one client or 10 clients is more valued to me than compromising from my values and beliefs. It's not worth it.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
you're 100% right. I think, and I never even looked at it in that way of the question you just phrased, like, are you willing to pay the price? I know the answer for myself, but I don't think that's something I've ever really thought of a lot or thought of to instill in other people to ask themselves. I think it's a really
Mm.
powerful question to, and again, I think a lot of this, I think almost everything we talked about today goes back to a lot of self-reflection and are we honest with oneself? Because
Yeah.
like you can say you want one thing, but you can then, you know, exemplify the actions and behaviors that don't align with, hey, you want this but your action behaviors are going to lead you to this. Like they're not even in a line. So do you really want it, and how honest are
Yeah.
you being with yourself, or is it just a pipe dream in your head and you think you want it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. We want a lot of things that we think we should want because everybody else wants them. Because, desire is contagious. You see that's how trends work. You see other people wearing certain fashion, like you want to buy the same thing. But it works even with bigger things in life. You see everybody's chasing growth and money and all of this, and all of a sudden those goals become appealing to you. But if you never really stop and ask yourself, what is so important? This is a good question also to ask yourself. What is so important about achieving X? Like you find yourself trying to like scale and grow, like what is important about that? Is that what you really want, or is that something that everybody does, so by default you're doing it, but you haven't really thought about how this is gonna play out in your life? Does this really fit the life you truly want to live? Does this fit your values? Does this fit your belief systems and all of that?
Yeah. And to kind of wrap it up here, one of the things I've been saying to clients since I've started working with private clients back in 2020, one on one, and up until this day, is there is a really valuable question in asking them or getting them to ask themselves and be honest, do you really want it? And if they think about it for a minute and the answer is yes, they better be able to answer my follow up of why do you really want it with some purpose behind it, not just because I want to make money. Like that shouldn't be the why behind it, right? So
Yeah,
again, dives
yeah.
back into everything we talked about today. Um, I think this was a really great discussion because, as I alluded to earlier, you have a background and expertise, and you work with people that maybe I don't think any other guests I've had on. And I think we've dove into some topics here today that I had never really covered in my PDOCS group or with those members or participants. But I think it's relevant to 80+% of the people that could possibly be watching this. So, guys, if you are watching again on the replay, I'm going to have down below also in addition the assessment that you mentioned, Anita. You're going to send me that link. That will be down in the description. The link for the free guide so you can kind of assess this in your own life and figure out what that mechanism is that's holding you back. I'm going to also include her social media contacts if you want to reach out to her,
Mm.
and her booking link if you want to book a call and speak with her one-on-one or get a little time with her one-on-one. Anita, why don't you just kind of close it out with, when you work with clients either in one-on-one or group settings, who is the person that you're helping? I mean, I know you talked about it very briefly at the beginning when
Mhm.
you gave your intro, but tell us a little more about like your ideal client, who you deliver the biggest results or transformation for, so those people kind of know to hook up with you.
Yeah, it's the founders and leaders of companies who have reached this point where they just realize they're not really happy with their business. They're miserable most of the time. They're for whatever reason, they're overworked, they're tired, they're exhausted. It just doesn't feel they just don't feel like doing it anymore. They're wondering like, what should I do? Because it's your business. You don't want to burn it to the ground, but what's next? Is this what you should be doing? And if you are going to be doing it, how can you make it easier for yourself? How can you make it more enjoyable? How can you be a better leader? How can you be a better husband? How can you be a better father? How can you be? I work with men, but I work with women as well. And I have actually quite a lot of female founder clients as well. Um, so, and everybody comes for specific, like technical problems. We always end up talking about this other stuff because that comes out as the real problem, right?
Yeah. So the
You,
technical thing is like the symptom or the service level problem, and then there's room
yeah,
for real problems down
yeah.
below.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, if you're just experiencing a lot of pain and suffering or just lack of, you just feel unalive in your business. That's another thing.
Lack
It's
of
just like you,
happiness, lack of fulfillment.
yeah. And you're just not motivated, and you're not probably not going to solve this problem with just more discipline. You got to ask your, because if this is just a phase you're going through, fine, but if this has been going on for a long time, like it's probably time to get back in touch with yourself and ask yourself some of those fundamental questions, like Raymond said, like what are your values? What do you stand for? What do you believe in? Who are you? What's your zone of genius? What do you really love doing? Why did you even start this business? What's your purpose? What kind of a life do you want to live? And in what ways are you sabotaging yourself and just kind of like blocking yourself from achieving that level of happiness and success that you want? And those are the kinds of things that we do. We dig deep to find out what the root cause of this unhappiness is. And then we are fixing that by realigning you with what you truly want, by finding out what it is that you truly want, right? And then, creating a vision for the life that you really want to live and, just reinvigorating you. And once you achieve that, once you feel that level of aliveness again and vision, and it's a total game changer.
Yeah, totally. So, Alvin, just really quickly, if you got a chance, I know I just asked you to unmute and you did, but I see you still here on the live stream. Just curious if you either had any questions for Anita based on what we covered, or if you had any major takeaway or benefit from today's live stream. I'd love to hear your feedback really quickly.
Uh, let's see. That's a lot of the same kind of stuff that I'd like to focus on in our mastermind group. You're really hitting on some of the real personal achievement and alignment, vision, purpose, those kind of things that yeah, make people's life worth living.
Mm,
Well
yeah,
said.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that feedback. Appreciate it. I'm glad you got a little bit of value. And I was thinking about that kind of as we were talking. I was like, this aligns very closely with Alvin, and because what you're doing over there, and I'm becoming a part of that as well. And I'll have some more posts on that very soon. But what you're doing over there in the legacy network is much more mission and purpose based than it is monetary. I mean, I know that right from the jump of what we've already been working on together. And that's what actually got me more intrigued with it. I don't really care about the money side of things anymore. I have that luxury. I'm not saying everybody, doesn't have to care, pay your bills, cover your bases, make sure you're earning what you're worth. I'm not saying that, but when you do get to a point where money isn't the number one motivator specifically, but it isn't even a top priority anymore, more mission and purpose based movements, I would say, resonate or align with me in where I'm at. So again, thank you for your feedback, Alvin. And
Mhm.
yeah, I got to run here. I got another call in 6 minutes that I got to run a little prep for before I hop onto that. So Anita, thank you
Ah,
so much for coming on to our group here, sharing with us, guys. Again, check all the resources down in the description below. If you're watching the replay, reach out to Anita. Send her a friend request on socials or grab her resource for sure. Do this exercise for yourself. And if you feel like she can help you or you're going through some of these problems yourself and you are a tech founder, a leader, an entrepreneur, business owner, take a session, book a call with her. I know every time I've spoke with her, it's been truly valuable. So thanks again, Anita.
thank you so much, Raymond, for the opportunity. And yeah, it's been really fun talking to you.
Awesome. All right. You and I will be in touch soon, but everybody else,
Yeah.
I will probably see you guys in the new year with the schedule for the live stream series. The next one would be on Christmas week, and I'm not going to run one then. So I'm sure I'll have some announcements, but probably no live streams till the new year just because of the time of year and vacations. And I do value my family time, so I'm going to be blocked off, not working as much of the holidays as I used to. I'll just be honest. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Raymond. Bye.